Well, the annual American Farm Bureau Federation convention took over Anaheim, California earlier this week. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins addressing the crowd on Monday, while Federation President Zippy Duvall gave his speech over the weekend. Duvall covering several topics, including the rise of the Make America Healthy Again movement, saying that everyone wants to see healthier outcomes for families and communities, but that decisions must be grounded in science.
Now, the buzzword used to be sustainability. Now it's regenerative agriculture. Regenerative, sustainable. They're just words. Words that describe practices that many of our farmers have been using for decades to grow more with less and protect our soil. Conservation efforts are a continuous journey, and that journey looks different depending upon the region, the soil type, or the crop. But one thing remains the same, and that's our commitment to the land.
Well, it's that push that was at the center of a major announcement just last month. And what may be unconventional about that was it wasn't just USDA involved. Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with the Department of Health and Human Services was also there. So what does soil have to do with human health? And what was it like to be part of that conversation and meet with both Kennedy and Rollins firsthand? That's this week's Farm Journal report.
My dad started the dairy business in '95.
John Hemme is one of 3 Hemme brothers nurturing the roots their dad started just over 30 years ago.
We are the only dairy in this county.
But as the lone dairy left here in Saline County, Missouri, they've also had to reinvent the family farm in order to survive.
That's where our direct market part of our business came in. The creamery, being able to go to processing and then direct market that end product has made us a viable operation yet as a small dairy.
Their Hemme Brother cheeses have become quite popular in the Kansas City and central Missouri area, but it's also how their crops are grown and the way they nurture the soil where those are produced that's given them an edge.
We started planting cover crops the first time in 2017. Got really aggressive by 2018 to where we tried to have all of our acres covered in one way or another.
That change happened at the request of one of their landlords almost a decade ago. John says that was the spark that spurred him to learn more about what regenerative agriculture even was.
We initially started just looking to try to reduce inputs to where we could keep a little more of our income.
And it's that work that caused John and his wife Brittany to receive a message from Washington, D.C. just last month.
We got a text message on December 8th saying, would you and John want to come to USDA and be a part of Secretary Rollins' announcement? I thought it was a joke maybe at first because it was so random, but we were on a plane the next morning and then with them in D.C. on December 10th.
Not knowing exactly what the announcement would be, the Hemmes were there as Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. made a joint announcement.
But really today is about the next step in making America healthy again, in addition to those waivers, and that is talking about regenerative agriculture.
Calling it the first of its kind, USDA and HHS announced a $700 million regenerative agriculture pilot program in December. The program will be administered by NRCS. But the goal is to create a national program to help farmers adopt soil health improving practices through a simple application process.
In order to continue to be the most productive and most efficient growers in the world, we must protect our topsoil from unnecessary erosion and boost the microbiome of the soil.
During the announcement, Kennedy said this marked a significant milestone, fulfilling a promise the agency made during the MAHA report that included 120 recommendations on how to transition to what he called a healthier America.
Among those promises, among the recommendations of the report, was the promise to make it easier for farmers in this country to give them an off-ramp where they can transition to a model that emphasizes soil health. And with soil health comes nutrient density.
But it wasn't just the announcement to which the Hemmes had a front row seat.
Once we got to D.C., they notified us that we would be in a roundtable discussion with Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Rollins, and Dr. Oz, and that made us pretty nervous.
Secretary Kennedy, in the roundtable discussion, he used the term off-ramp. several times. And I appreciate that because it's not an all or nothing. It's something that you can, if you've been thinking about trying cover crops or you've been thinking about adding another crop into your rotation, you can work with USDA and NRCS and come up with a plan that is going to work for you on your farm in your context.
John says Kennedy asked questions like what markets were available today for regenerative products and how long it takes to transition to regenerative ag.
Do you feel like Secretary Kennedy listened?
Yeah, he did. You could see him, the wheels turning.
February 13th will mark 1 year since Kennedy was sworn into President Trump's cabinet. At the time, there was nervousness within agriculture that Kennedy would target glyphosate and other herbicides used by farmers. But the Hemmes say there was no talk of that during their discussion with him last month.
There was mention of, the tools in the toolbox, and there was no mention of taking any of those tools away.
As USDA and HHS make a push to support regenerative agriculture, there's also a misconception about what regenerative agriculture actually is.
It is conservation, but it's also trying to build some resilience into your soil. And so if you follow the soil health principles of, keeping, minimize disturbance, keeping residue on the surface, a living root in the soil, you will start to build a carbon load in your soil, which you'll be able to hold more water when it does rain. So you'll get more resilience when in weather pattern shifts.
John says his biggest mistake in the beginning was getting too aggressive with regenerative ag at the start, with other valuable lessons along the way.
Don't let them get real big at first.
Cover crops.
The cover crops. If you're using cover crops, you can get a lot of weed suppression if you let them get big and lay them down and save herbicide, but eventually that residue has to leave. And so if you almost constipate your soil if you're too aggressive up front.
As John and Brittany are back on the family farm today, looking toward a new year and what's ahead. They say 2025 had an ending they never expected. The chance to meet two of Trump's cabinet members firsthand, while also having meaningful conversations about what's working on their farm when it comes to regenerative ag, is an experience they'll never forget. Well, the Hemmes told me they're also excited about the fact that dairy, what they call a superfood and a perfect food, is now at the top of the food pyramid, a high-protein food they say has been missing from people's diets. Well, when we come back, farmer frustration over USDA's reports this week, it has been growing. We have a one-on-one conversation with the director of the methodology division within NAST, who's also serving as the chair of the Ag Statistics Board. That conversation is next.